Hello everyone, so this will be a quick little commentary over my finished Crystal Beans from Dungeon Explorer TAS. So let's just start this movie. So, beginning with this task, we have to decide what character we use, and since Monk has not only the best base attack out of all of the characters, but also the most max health, when leveling up, we easily get to decide that we want to use the Monk. So, a couple informations about how this game works. So, as you see, I shoot and pretty much don't stop at all. The way this works is this game enables movement only on every 4th frame, so you press a directional button for 1 frame, and then the next 3 frames you don't have to press any movement at all. And between every time you have to press a directional button, you can shoot without stopping, and that's basically what I will do the entire task. So this was the first boss. There's a little bit more to it than just shooting at the boss, but it wasn't really used all that much on this one, so I will point it out on the next one where it's more obvious. And this was already the first dungeon, nothing too major about it. Basically just trying to kill everything inside that I can kill without wasting time, and then trying to make sure to also not create lag, because this game is very laggy. From what I know, lag doesn't really waste time, it just extends the 4 frame window into like a 5 frame window, or depending on how bad the lag is, even more, and your movement just keeps on going. So it shouldn't really waste time unless like you're in a battle, then it will waste time. But still, I try to decrease lag wherever it's possible. As in, I'm either not shooting any of the spawners because my shots would create lag, or I'm shooting all of the spawners in advance before they can even spawn something. Like right there, I shot an enemy that would have spawned. Don't really need the potion, but still got it. So right here, just look at how I kill the boss. Like right there, once I'm inside his hitbox with my hurtbox, basically the boss takes damage every 2nd frame, and sometimes even on every frame. The way this works is, if the game doesn't lag at all and you're really close to an enemy, you can shoot 1 bullet every 10 frames. And between those 10 frames, you can hold down the Y button, which the Y button would be a melee attack. You will see how that looks like later on in the task. I get to use it a couple times on its own. But essentially, on the 9 frames between the shots, I can hold down the melee attack. And well, the melee attack doesn't happen visually, but the game registers it as an input and as an attack. And it hits way more frequently than just shooting, but shooting is still stronger, so we want to shoot, then do the melee attack, and then shoot again, and keep on repeating that process. And optimally, it will be every 10 frames where we shoot. So the pattern I got on this boss wasn't all that optimal. There are patterns where it lags less, and as you saw at the very end, I moved into the hitbox of the boss so I could make use of the melee attack as well without having to die once. Because I need the lives on other bosses optimally. And yeah, about the pattern on this boss, I said it wasn't optimally. From what I know and what I figured out, the RNG in this game changes every 256 frames. So it's a very lazy and very stiff way the RNG works in this game. Really quick, this room, if you cancel out the text box too quick, you get a longer loading zone entering this teleporter right here. So I had to delay closing the text box by a couple frames. But yeah, going back to RNG. made it essentially impossible to manipulate anything in this game. There's one exception, which I will point out once we are there, but just keep in mind whenever you see some pattern on the boss that doesn't really look all that optimal, it's probably because I couldn't manipulate it. Like, when I hit the second boss, and the second boss gave me only the second best pattern, I tried to manipulate it, and that's how I figured out that only every 256 frames RNG changes. It's pretty unfortunate for a TAS, but it's what we have to deal with. And usually, bosses don't take long enough for you to be able to, for you to be worth it to wait the 256 frames or however many it may be. Like, usually it's not the full 256 frames you have to wait in front of the boss, but generally bosses die way too quick for it to be worth it. So yeah, coming up on the Minotaur, this is the first boss we want to abuse. Dying while standing inside its hitbox. Also, right there, when he swings with the hammer on the ground, that was perfectly timed death, pretty much. When he hits the ground with its hammer, you get stunned, but you can avoid that by just respawning after he hit the ground. So yeah, that couldn't have been any better, really. Perfectly timed death there. So that was one case where RNG kind of played in our favor. Another part with RNG is like how NPCs move. So the first time I talked to this guy when I had to, he moved a little bit downwards, and this time I talked to him right as he was about to move, and he would have moved upwards. So yeah, that stuff I also can't really prevent. Right now we have to do some arbitrary stuff where we have to talk to NPCs to unlock the next either towns or dungeons. So because this game is so trivial, it wasn't really all that hard to make this TAS. It was rather laid back. In general, it was also a rather quick process. So right here, there are some obstacles in our way, which we have to either wait for to get out of our way or just kill. And in a TAS, it's obviously, especially with the melee attack, it's obviously way faster to just get rid of them. Like right there, just kill them. You don't really care about taking damage either from running into them, because for once I think they deal only 1 damage, which is nothing. But on the other hand, we also want to still get rid of 3 of our lives. So right there it wasn't worth it to get rid of either of both of those, just walk around them. Also right there, I don't know if you caught it, but the last shot on the second rolling thing in this room, I turned around facing diagonally upright to make the shot go into the wall, because there's a cap limit of 2 shots at once being on screen at any time. So that way I made the shot despawn earlier. So right there, fully abused the fact that we can press the melee attack in between shots. This boss died really quick. In the previous work in progress I had with this TAS, before I found out about the melee attack thingy, I don't know if I should call it a glitch or if it's intended, I'm honestly not sure. It feels a bit like glitch, but yeah, before I figured that one out, I only had to use shots and I died twice on this boss, which wasn't that big of a deal. But this way it's a bit more efficient. I'm getting as to why we want to get rid of our lives in the next dungeon. before that we have to talk to this fairy here and then to another villager in the next town. Also, I should probably also go over what we are doing at the end of each boss, why we wait to pick up the crystal for so long. So, when the crystal spawns, it's yellow, which gives you agility, makes you move faster, but doesn't increase anything else except health, which every crystal increases your health. But the next one that cycles through it is already the blue one, which blue is attack, and attack makes us kill bosses faster, and you really want to be able to kill bosses faster because for once you have a kinda tight route with your lives, and well, just killing bosses quicker saves more time than just walking a tiny bit faster. Like, it's really not a lot. Also, right there, I think... Was it in this dungeon already? I don't know, I will point it out in another dungeon. It will happen again. Doesn't happen too many times in this task because can't really make too much use of it. So yeah, I died twice on this boss, just abusing being able to stand inside his hitbox. Right there, after he dies, even though he's already dead, I still get the hurt sound. Doesn't deal any damage to me though. So you're just waiting until it turns blue, then picking it up, and out we are. So the mechanic in this game is if you have no lives left and you game over, you will just restart from the beginning of the dungeon you are in. So just abusing that, instead of going through the second half of this dungeon after the boss, we just die and get out of it like this. The way I suicided there is also I was able to walk into two enemies at once, which if they hit you on the same frame, you take double damage from each enemy. You take the hit from each of both enemies. It's not that hard, you can even do that in RTA. But here I took it to perfection. So the next boss is the only instance I was able to manipulate RNG, and I'm still not sure why. So first things first, just getting rid of it until he goes underground. Now the little guys spawn. And you have to kill a certain amount of them, and depending on when you kill them, like how long they stay on screen and everything, you will be able to make the following ones spawn quicker, even before an RNG cycle happens. I don't know why you can only manipulate that, but anything else, like if you wait, shoot enemies, let enemies spawn, die, do anything, RNG won't change, but this fight it does for some reason. So you're already setting up for more death warps, getting rid of some lives here. Next boss has some lag reduction strats to it. They're not too crazy. They definitely ended up saving quite some time compared to what you would do in RTA. First of all, we have to... We are only able to hit the boss when the shell is open. We can get rid of the boss's shell in 2 cycles, which is impossible in RTA. Then... Not only does it save time by doing the melee attack glitch on bosses by being able to stand inside their hitbox, but in this case you saw how many shots there were on the screen from the boss's head on the second phase. Well, that would have been way more if I wouldn't have stood inside them and tanked away all of them. So even if you wouldn't do even if the melee glitch wouldn't work, we would have still done kind of the same to get rid of most shots. So as you see from above the Crystal Beans logo on the bottom, usually above the word where it says Crystal Beans there are 5 yellow dots which correspond to your lives. Right now we have 0, so we are pretty much set up for the next death warp, which will happen in the next dungeon. Also, this NPC moved right in my way, but didn't really matter because we could maneuver around him without wasting any frame. So this dungeon is where I found out about the quote-unquote glitch with the melee attack, and I had to redo all of it up until this point. Just because of that one little finding. But it ended up saving up to this point already like 1,300 frames, so it was way worth it. And it was the reason why this TAS ended up being sub 30 minutes, which I'm very happy about. Very fitting that this dungeon has the best music in the game as well. It's pretty high. So the next boss just gets annihilated by the melee attack glitch. Doesn't take long at all to kill him once we're inside his hitbox. Just get up there and it's done. That would take way longer without melee attacks. And yeah, next death warp is already happening right there. So on this one, you will notice if you look at my HP, I survived with 1 HP. If only I could have done one double hit more, I would have saved a couple frames, but it wasn't possible. Because these spawners are too far apart of each other. And another thing about RNG, just to talk about it, before I had to redo everything because of the melee attack glitch. Also, just another thing really quick, because it happens right here. So, I'm not only setting up taking damage to die here again from the skeletons, but right there you saw it. When I got hit by the skeleton, it pushed me a little bit to the right. I can't guarantee that it saved a frame or maybe more. But what I can guarantee you is that it pushed me a couple pixels, but I don't know if it was worth a frame or not. I don't really judge by saving frames or not. I'm more or less judged by being ahead on the same frame by a couple pixels. But yeah, where I was going with RNG, also this boss is quick work again as well. Before I redid everything, RNG usually played in my favor, and after I had to redo it, I got a lot of bad patterns, which made me really salty because I could do nothing about it. Like, I had pretty much perfect RNG everywhere, and then I had to go back to bad RNG because of new time saves and you not being able to manipulate it. Talking about bad RNG, like literally I would have needed to wait over 500 frames or so for the vampire to not give me a spinning pattern in the beginning. But as you saw, I just used the spinning pattern because he's invulnerable while he spins. I just used it to get rid of all my lives. Ended up being the fastest, like I could have stood like 10 seconds in front of his room and he would have still gotten me the spinning pattern. For occasions like this, it's really unfortunate that you can't manipulate RNG. On the other hand, it just plays into the game for being as simple as it is. Like, the movement is very simple, attacking is very simple, and even the RNG is very simple. There's not a lot to it. It's just figuring out the best path through every dungeon, which wasn't that hard either. So right here, as you see, I'm hitting the rocks with my ranged attack with the bullet, just so they move out of my way. Not every time, but usually I do that. And depending on when you hit the rock, they will also go into a different direction. So the reason why we had to go into the previous dungeon again after we killed the vampire, by the way, in this dungeon there is supposed to be gas all over the place, so you need the gas mask. You won't be able to survive it going through this. Also, entering this dungeon there was a text box again, and I think that's the trigger for it, because I already mentioned it in the Minotaur dungeon. But this is another instance where there is a text box when you enter the dungeon, and if you close the text box too early, you get a longer loading entering the next room. It's also the case here. Those are the only two instances of where this happens. So you have to sacrifice some frames. And this also is a thing on console, this is not an emulator only thing. This also happens on console. That if you close it too early, you get a longer loading. Also, this was really close. 4 HP left and I would have died. One more hit. Same here. I'm leaving the spawner so I can take double hits on every single hit and die a bit quicker. Right there again, I had to delay closing the text box just a little bit so the loading gets shorter here. So yeah, there's one more death warp, which was pretty close actually, that it was worth it or not. Because technically you don't need to death warp here, you just die because you need the lives, and trying to avoid dying to not have to game over to get back your lives turned out to be not faster actually. Like you see on this boss, I used the melee attack for the first time. You see how it looks like. It ended up being faster simply because, for some reason, using the ranged attack didn't hurt the boss anymore at a certain point. And usually when that happens, it's either your angle is bad or you're not just hitting the boss in the right spot. No matter where I was standing and what direction I was facing, I just couldn't hit this boss anymore with the ranged attack. So yeah, I just had to go back to the melee attack and killed it. It will happen, I think, on a couple more bosses, but those are usually for other reasons. So yeah, like right there, I just damage boost over everything and die right there. Because of things like that, it just wasn't worth it to preserve the lives I had. To not do the last death warp. And again, I will take so much damage that I will just die on the next boss again. And I would have needed to wait for all of those platforms in order to not die twice in this dungeon. So yeah, on this boss I will do the ranged attack again. At the end, it turned out to be faster because the bullet takes a couple frames until it hits. But by the time the bullet would have hit, the ranged attack already killed the boss. So it was a little bit faster here to finish it off with the ranged attack, with the melee attack. Just not caring about HP at all, just damage boosting when I can't kill the enemies. Like right there, that was a really unfortunate spawn. The enemy spawned right in my face. That's actually, I've never seen that spawn happen like that, so I must have been pretty unlucky there. So yeah, on this boss another death will happen. The death actually only happened on this boss due to bad RNG, but it was actually quite nice because I wanted to get rid of that life anyway, so the bad RNG kind of played in my favor. So it was in fact good RNG. Whereas on this boss, I killed him so quick that I had to wait like what was it? I think 50 frames before I died and could kill the boss. But I took the boss down to a point where I just needed to respawn, press the melee attack button, and I died. First frame, so it was a pretty quick death. So yeah, next dungeon, at the very beginning, I'm setting up a death warp. And this ended up, again, being faster than just trying to avoid dying. Especially because of the last dungeon having spikes all over the place with those slow platforms. So I don't know if they just got better at programming or whatever they did. Even though this dungeon kind of lags, you still get movement every 4 frames. Either they found a way to work against the lag, or they just got better at coding, I don't know, but yeah, you move way faster in this dungeon and have movement on every 4 frames. Except for when those things that you will see down here, that one, when that explodes, there's 1 frame of lag. I'm talking about lag, when those things shoot, it just lags like shit. So here just hold right, and you always land in the correct teleporter. In the TurboGrafx 16 version, actually, all of those teleporters, well, TurboGrafx 16 version, quote unquote, this is kind of a remake, which works a bit different. But yeah, in the TurboGrafx 16 version, each of that teleporter would have been a boss fight, a refight with previous bosses. So right here, I actually finished the boss with the melee attack, even though it was slower by like 1 frame. Or was it 3 frames? It was 1 or 3 frames, I forgot. But yeah, I finished it with the melee attack because if I would have killed it with the bullet would have been on screen and created more lag. So that was faster. And here, unfortunately, just moving in this room or doing anything creates lag, so standing around, just tanking the wisps was faster than getting rid of them. Just to show you how much this room lags, like just moving from where I stand to right there already made the teleporter spawn 1 frame later. But it ended up saving time, of course, because I was closer to it. Now the final boss. For once I got really good RNG. Once you want the boss to stay on the right side, because you see the platform I'm standing on? It's 1 tile higher up than everything else, so it's the closest you can be to the boss. But if he is on the right side, that means all good. And especially since he charged 2 balls while standing on the right side in each form, that was just beautiful. But yeah, then it ended up going to the left. Nothing I could do about that, but It was still rather fast, and that's already it. The boss loses his arm, loses its second arm, and then a couple more hits and it's dead. And that's the end of the TAS. So, final time was 29 minutes 57 seconds. With TAS timing, which means timing from power on first frame to final input last frame. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I was worried I didn't know what to talk about while watching this, because there is honestly not a lot to talk about, but I hope I could still entertain you and provide some knowledge and insight. But yeah, that shall be it. I don't think we need the credits for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for eventually more TASes coming from me.